What's up, everybody? Can you hear me? I got the mic up today. We're legit now. We should have good sound. If you're hearing this, let me know what it sounds like. All right, looks good. Looks good on the TV. Sounds high quality, beautiful. That's what I want. That's what I want. So how's everybody doing today? We got so much to dive into. It has been a very eventful week. I have a list of things spanning, I don't know, 30 different links or some shit like that for today. Look at this. Look at all this stuff. Oh, my Lord. All right. Well, we're going to dive right in and go because it's probably going to take me the whole live just to get through everything on my list. Nothing really new with me. Feeling better. Feeling a lot better, actually. Getting back to work, getting back to normal. One update for today. I will be going live later tonight and playing a new game. I'll be playing Creepy Shift or something like that. Uncle Joe's Motel. I thought it was fitting to play the horror game Uncle Joe's Motel. about a niece who goes and works at her uncle's motel, which is apparently very haunted and scary. So we'll be playing that tonight. Tune back in. I'll have another blast out going out so everybody knows when I'm going live, but I should be going live around 8 p.m. tonight to play some games and have some fun. And then I'm probably going to come back on Sunday as well and play Baldur's Gate 3 or maybe another indie dev game, but I think I'm going to play Baldur's Gate 3 with a couple of friends on Sunday afternoon, so that'll be super fun. Okay, let's fucking dive right in. All right. So this week, this is from March 19th. Breaking, the Pentagon seeks $200 billion in additional funds for the Iran war, according to an AP source, Associated Press. If you don't follow the news, or you're not constantly reading the news or intaking the news, Associated Press is basically the gold standard when it comes to breaking news. They are probably the most trusted source. A lot of mainstream news organizations use them to basically report on their breaking news. So Associated Press, very trustworthy. Sometimes they skew a little weird when you get like opinion pieces and stuff like that, but most of the time they're just handling breaking news. So you can usually trust what they have to say. So let's dive into this article and see what it says. Now, just to put in perspective, $200 billion, okay? I made a TikTok, some of you may have seen a few weeks ago, basically describing how long it would take you to make or spend $1 billion if you were to... Oh, you know what I forgot to do? Hold on one sec. Oh, that's much better. There we go. Now I can see. Oh, that's really bright, though. There we go. That's better. Okay. So, yeah. So, 1492. Everyone remembers history class, learning about Christopher Columbus. 1492. It's a little under, 500, like 525 years or 535 years or something like that since that date. Now, if you were to spend or be given $5,000 a day for that entire period of time, you still wouldn't have made or spent $1 billion. Okay? $5,000 per day. Okay? Now, most people, you probably don't even make $5,000 a month. That usually, if you take home $5,000 a month, that usually equates to a take-home average of about $60,000 per year, and a pre-tax amount of about $90,000 per year. Right. So good paying jobs, great paying jobs. $5,000 per month. Okay. If you got it $5,000 per day, you still would not be able to make $1 billion in over 500 years. Okay, it would take you more than 500 years. They want $200 billion in additional funds just for this war. It has been going on for 3 weeks. 3 weeks we're at. Okay. Now, to put into further perspective, okay, the Pentagon has released multiple stat sheets on how much the war in the Ukraine has cost us, how much we have sent to Ukraine to help them with the war against Russia, and that it has been going on for 4 years. I think we just went over 3. Right? It was 2023 it started, or 2022. No, it was 2022. 2023 is when the war in Gaza, when the October 7th attacks happens. So 4 years in Ukraine, and we haven't even spent $200 billion on that. Okay. Now, this is also us lending money, lending resources, weapons to a proxy state, essentially, that we can use as we need as we see fit, right? It's essentially a landlocked aircraft carrier, the country of Israel, right? This is basically us just supporting this war, right? They launched the preemptive attack on Iran, stating that they had nuclear weapons or that they were about to have nuclear weapons, even though we know that's not true. Even according to our own intelligence reports, that's not true. They still launched this preemptive attack on Iran, and we have been helping them as much as, if not more, than Ukraine. Because if we were to directly attack Russia, this would spark basically a nuclear war, right? We're okay with attacking Iran because they don't have nuclear weapons. And we know they don't have nuclear weapons. Otherwise, we would not have attacked them. If you look at North Korea has ICBM nuclear capability. They can launch intercontinental ballistic missiles at other countries. Have we attacked North Korea? Absolutely fucking not, because it's mutual destruction. It's ensured mutual destruction, okay? So, anyway, let's dig into this now. The Pentagon is seeking $200 billion in additional funds for the Iran war, a sizable amount that is certainly to be met with questions from Congress, which would need to approve any new money. The department sent the request to the White House, according to a senior administration official who spoke on condition of anonymity, to discuss the private information. Asked about the figure at a press conference Thursday, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, thank you for calling him Defense Secretary, even though they call it the Department of War now, fuck that shit, did not directly confirm the amount, saying it could change. He basically said it's fluid, right? It could go up, it could go down, we might need more, we might need less. It takes money to kill bad guys, Hegseth said. But he said, we're going back to Congress and our folks there to ensure that we're properly funded. Now, this is on top of the $1 trillion budget that the Defense Department got in December. Okay? We just gave them $1 trillion in December, and they want another $200 billion to keep fighting this war in Iran that nobody fucking wants. Okay? Nobody except for a few small gas and oil proxy states, essentially, right? It's an extraordinary high number and comes on top of the extra funding the Defense Department already received last year at President Trump's big tax cuts bill, right? The big, beautiful bill. Such a request would need to be approved by Congress, and it is not at all clear such spending would have political support. The nation's debt has surged past a record $39 trillion. Now, that's, it's made up, right? The debt is made up. We could say at any point, well, we don't have any debt anymore. We don't have this debt anymore. We do it all the time by printing money, essentially, which causes a deficit, right? It's like a manufactured crisis, right? When you look at who owns our debt, mainly it's allies. It's trading allies that we have all around the world. So we are in debt essentially to ourselves. It's fucking stupid. It doesn't really make a difference. Congress has been bracing for a new spending request, but is not clear the White House has transmitted the request for consideration. Lawmakers have not authorized the war. The Congress is showing growing unease with the military operations scope and strategy. The new funding request was first reported by the Washington Post. So there you go. Actually, I guess that was breaking by the Washington Post. Now, $200 billion. And like I said before, we haven't even spent that much in Ukraine in 4 years. Okay, we've been in Iran for 3 fucking weeks. This is what $200 billion could get us. This is high-speed rail, okay? If we were to invest that money in the United States instead of Israel and Iran, we could have all of this high-speed rail all throughout the country. Now, to get even more in depth, This would be our active. This is our active high-speed rail projects. This is all we have right now. Okay. I don't want to go to the next post. I want to stay on this post. X, thank you. Okay. So, these are all of the high-speed rails that we have right now. I live in Charlotte. I do not know of any high-speed rail project that is going from Charlotte to Atlanta. If we were to have it, we would be able to get from Charlotte to Atlanta in about an hour. Currently, right now, it takes like 3.5, but with traffic and everything, you're usually over 4 hours to get there. They have proposed one from New York to Washington, D.C., and that would take about an hour, a little over an hour as well. That would be insane. Being able to connect our financial center, our biggest financial city, to our political capital would greatly strengthen the ability for people to get work done between the two most major cities in the United States. Now, if we go back, this is what we could have, okay? This is what we have, kind of, right? Purple, high-speed rail under construction. Blue, high-speed rail planning underway, okay? So this is just thoughts right now. It's not even actually happening, right? This is what we could have. For $200 billion. For $10 billion, you could literally solve all the hunger issues in the United States. Not a single person would be hungry. And for, I think the last estimate that I saw was a little over $20 billion, and you could end homelessness in the United States. We currently have over 500,000, I want to say close to 750,000 homeless people in the United States. 750,000 of our own citizens are currently homeless. But the Pentagon's got to bomb school kids in other countries. We got to get that oil, baby. We got to get that oil. We gotta further this holy war for Israel so that Jesus can come back and kill all the Israelites, which is not even a thing. It's not even a fucking thing. So, remember I said earlier, right? We got $1 trillion. We gave $1 trillion to the Pentagon in December, okay? The Pentagon fails its 8th audit in a row as Congress grants it another $1 trillion, right? So we had just failed our 8th audit of the Pentagon, and yet we still granted them $1 trillion. Okay, this is crazy. This funding will enrich billionaires like Elon Musk and Alex Karp as Americans struggle to afford basic needs. Now, a lot of this money goes into black book or covert or classified tech contracts, essentially, right? Elon Musk is the biggest welfare queen in the United States. He makes almost all of his money from defense contracts, from government contracts, okay? The only way that Tesla stays afloat is because of its ability to sell its energy credits to other companies to offset their emissions. We just love giving billionaires all of our money. I don't know why. It doesn't enrich anyone. It just enriches these billionaires, right? And all their friends. Let's scroll down. So this is truthout.org. I haven't really read a lot from these guys, but this article seemed pretty reasonable. The Pentagon has failed its annual audit for the 8th consecutive year, continuing its streak as the only federal agency to never pass an audit, even as Congress grants it a record high budget of over $1 trillion for 2026. Michaela, a little old lady I spend time with got mad when I mentioned the Iranian girls' school. Well, he did not mean to hit the school, of course. Honey, I don't give a shit if he meant to land it in the Antarctic. Bombs are a literal waste of resources and solve nothing in a peaceful manner. Make it make sense. You can't. You can't make it make sense. It doesn't make sense. And we also know that the intelligence information that they used to bomb this school was outdated. And the intelligence community had stated that. And they're like, who gives a fuck? No one cares. I'm waiting for the information release when this stuff becomes declassified, either after the midterms, if we have them, and a new government, the Democrats come into power and they decide to declassify some of these things regarding this illegal war. Who made the decision to attack that school? And was it human or was it AI? Because if you remember, or if you've seen, Anthropic, the makers of Claude AI, had a contract with the Defense Department to essentially give them access to their AI systems. They said, we don't want anything to do with military strikes or AI-influenced military strikes on other countries or civilian infrastructure. And we will not give you complete free reign over our AI systems. There has to be guardrails in place. The Pentagon said, go fuck yourself. You're going to give us everything we want, or do what they did and essentially label them as a risk, a supply chain risk, which is basically reserved for foreign countries and like terrorist organizations in other countries. So they said to basically, if you do business with Claude or anything like that, your business could be marked as basically supporting terrorism, essentially. And then OpenAI, which is ChatGPT, they swooped in, they got that contract, and basically told the Defense Department, you can have free reign over our stuff. We don't want to bomb kids, but yes, bullying plus greed plus power equals disaster, 100%. Anyway, let's get back to this failed audit. The Department of Defense identified issues with tracking funds for the programs like the F-35 fighter jet program, which will come up in a little bit. We will talk about that in a bit. The Pentagon's most expensive project with a cost of over $2 trillion over the past few decades. The authors of the department's annual financial report released Friday identified 26 material weaknesses within the department's internal controls, referring to severe issues among the agency's accounting that could lead to major misstatements on financial reports. The report said that the department is committed to its goal of passing an audit which is legally mandated for federal agencies by 2028. So they have basically said, okay, I know we failed the last 8 audits, but if you give us another 2 years, we'll probably fail that one in 2 years too, but then we can just kick the can a little bit further down the road, essentially, right? Who's going to really hold them accountable? There's no Department of Defense of Department of Defense. You know what I mean? There's really no internal accountability, essentially, right? It's like the police investigating themselves. Nothing's ever really going to get done. They're just going to protect themselves. There are a myriad of reasons for the Pentagon's inability to pass an audit. Earlier this year, the Government Accountability Office found in a report that one reason is that the agency faces significant fraud exposure from military contractors who engage in brazen and open price gouging. The Pentagon has also historically been unable to account for its assets. This year, the Pentagon reported having $4.6 trillion in assets, but trillions of dollars worth of this may be in limbo. As of 2022, the Pentagon was unable to keep track of over 60% of its assets. 60%. But here's another $1 trillion. Oh, you want another $200 billion? Here's another $200 billion. I mean, we're most likely going to see a very very lackluster pushback from either side of the aisle in Congress when it comes to trying to enforce this or really be like, what do you need the $200 billion for? How much money do you actually need for this? And can you prove it? And they might make a little bit of a stink. They might throw a little bit of a fight, and then they're probably most likely going to grant it to them, because defense bills historically have been overwhelmingly passed with bipartisan support. So that means both sides of the aisle usually are just like, you know what? It's all good. We really want to protect our country and be able to bomb little kids especially brown little kids in other countries. So here's all the money that you could ever possibly need. Despite this, Congress continues to give the Pentagon massive sums of funding. Last week, the Senate gave final passage to the National Defense Authorization Act, granting the Pentagon $901 billion in funding for the fiscal year 2026. It passed with flying colors, 311 to 110 in the House and 77 to 20 in the Senate. That actually might be some of the most pushback I've ever seen as far as voting numbers when it comes to defense spending. On top of the $156 billion in military spending granted by Congress in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act earlier this year, the U.S. military's budget now tops $1 trillion for the first time. This funding stands in stark contrast with the historical affordability crisis crippling the U.S., triggered in part by the GOP's sweeping cuts to Medicaid and SNAP benefits. Polling has found that Americans increasingly can't afford basic needs like health care and groceries. A recent survey by GQR for the Century Foundation found, for instance, that nearly 3 in 10 Americans reported delaying or skipping medical care in the past year for cost reasons, while over a third of Americans reported foregoing a meal to save money. I listened to a phone call the other day of a woman talking about how her SNAP benefits were cut to, I believe she said she gets $35 a month from SNAP benefits. And she lives alone. She lives by herself, so she doesn't have anybody else to feed. And her entire monthly budget for food is $65. $65. I spent $47 at the grocery store yesterday, and I only got like milk, a couple cans of cat food, and literally food for like maybe 1 or 2 days. $47. I did splurge on some Chinese food for my wife, though, so she could be happy today when I don't make dinner. Reappropriating the Pentagon's budget, meanwhile, could serve as a major boon to the working class. The National Priorities Project reported earlier this year, for instance, that the budget could have paid for 116 million public housing units. SNAP benefits for nearly 500 million people. There's only 340 million of us in this country. Or nearly 300 million children receiving Medicaid for a year. That's what we could have done with the budget that went to the Pentagon. An additional $8 billion over President Trump's requested military budget granted by Congress alone is more than enough to restore the SNAP funding slashed by Republicans in their budget bill, National Priorities Project has reported. Instead, the funding will go towards fueling the Trump administration's war mongering as he seeks to escalate his unpopular illegal military aggression against Venezuela and Israel's campaign of genocide and ethnic cleansing in Palestine. Now, this is from December. So we hadn't even gone back into Iran from our July attack on them, Operation Midnight Hammer, when we supposedly obliterated their nuclear weapons program, which they didn't fucking have. With over half of the Pentagon's budget going towards private contractors, the war budget will further enrich people like Elon Musk and Palantir CEO and billionaire Alex Karp, as regular Americans are left by their government to die, quite literally. Now, Alex Karp was recorded recently on a Zoom call for his business OpenAI. So Palantir CEO, this guy was like, sometimes we kill people. It's okay. It's okay though, because our money, like what we make, is booning the economy. And then you have literally yesterday, Jerome Powell coming out and basically saying AI investment, all of the money that they've been talking about has literally had zero effect on improving our economy. Zero effect. Because it's essentially, it was like a couple $100 billion just being moved around between these companies. And they're like, oh, look at this economy. It was like a shell game. It was like the shell game with the ball underneath, and you got to try and figure out where the ball is. But the entire time those cups were moving, the economy is doing good. That makes literally zero fucking sense. It's just like, it's like going back to the 90s, to the tech bubble when it was about to burst. It will inevitably burst, and the AI boon will come crashing down. All right, let's move on to the next thing. So, what was the infrastructure here? Yeah, okay. So, we're talking about the war, obviously, in Iran. Trump has stated nothing but unconditional surrender, and they have to get rid of all of their nuclear enrichment programs. They can't make any weapons. They can't enrich their uranium or anything like that. Breaking, this is from Thursday, or from Wednesday. Iran offered to give away all of its enriched uranium during peace talks in Geneva. The British thought it was a credible offer. Hours later, Trump started bombing Iran anyway. Let's listen to what these guys have to say.
David?
And there was one development yesterday. It builds on reporting MS Now had earlier. Iran offered to give away all of its enriched uranium during the peace talks. And hours later, the U.S. started dropping bombs. And The Guardian broke yesterday that there were British officials. The British National Security Advisor was present in Geneva during that last round of talks. The British were surprised by the Iranian offer. They thought it was credible. They thought the talks should continue. And the British were shocked when the Trump administration started bombing Iran hours later.
David?
So there you go. Fucking crazy. We're literally talking about, oh, they want to bomb us. They're going to attack us. We had to attack them first. They're literally in negotiations going, we will give you all of our enriched uranium. You can just have it. You can just have it. You can just take it. Now we want to do an operation where we send 2,000 fucking Marines into the country of Iran, where we have a strategic disadvantage in combat. It is incredibly mountainous. It is incredibly sparse. The people that live there know their fucking country, and they will wreck us if we go in there, just like Afghanistan, just like Iraq. We could barely keep up with anything in those countries because, and Vietnam, same thing. The guerrilla warfare is not a tactic that you can just throw money at. Okay? You can't just throw money at a military problem like that when you don't have the fucking information to effectively engage in ground war in foreign countries. So we have the Iranian government going, hey, we'll give you all our enriched uranium. We bomb them anyway. And then now we have to come up with a plan to go in and get the enriched uranium when we could have fucking had it literally 3 weeks ago. Ugh. It's fucking crazy, dude. It's just like the decision-making process here, it literally doesn't make any sense. I mean, it makes sense in a money-making way. The only way that this makes sense is that people are benefiting off of this monetarily. Exactly. Bananas. Bananas. It is bananas. Okay? Let's look at this report from yesterday from Dropsite News. Iran struck major energy infrastructure across the Gulf on Wednesday, Thursday in retaliation for U.S.-Israel strikes on the South Pars gas field. Now, if you don't know what the South Pars gas field is, neither did I until I learned about it the other day when they fucking attacked it. It's the largest liquefied natural gas field in the world, okay? It supplies 30% of the world's natural gas. Okay, it is operated between Qatar and Iran. They both operate in the same field. Okay. Qatar, Roslaufen LNG hub, liquid natural gas, the world's largest natural gas export facility, was hit with at least one missile penetrating defenses and causing extensive damage and fires. A second wave of strikes Thursday caused further damage, Qatar Energy said. By Thursday, which is an ally of ours, right? That we have we have the largest Middle Eastern military base besides the state of Israel, essentially. Qatar is the next biggest supplier of military bases for the U.S. In the Middle East. Okay. By Thursday morning, Qatar's Interior Ministry said the fires had been extinguished. Habshan, this is in UAE, so the United Arab Emirates, Habshan gas facility and Bob Field, Iran targeted Habshan, a key processing hub that handles much of Abu Dhabi's onshore gas output, and the nearby Bob oil fields, one of UAE's largest production areas. While missiles were intercepted, debris sparked fires and forced a shutdown at Habshan. The UAE called it a dangerous escalation threatening global energy security. In Saudi Arabia, Riyadh refineries, ballistic missiles targeted facilities supplying the capital's fuel market with capacity of about 130,000 barrels per day, according to the Wall Street Journal. Air defenses, Saudi Arabia claims, intercepted the strikes, and debris caused limited damage, but videos showed massive fires at the site. This video is of a Saudi foreign minister, Prince Faisal bin Farhan, confirmed 2 refineries were attacked while not clarifying the extent of damage. Unconfirmed reports online also indicate fires near Yanbu, a key Red Sea oil refining and export hub that Saudi Arabia has been ramping up exports from to bypass the Strait of Hormuz. Now, you have the Strait of Hormuz, which runs between Qatar and Oman and Iran, right? Iran pretty much controls the Strait of Hormuz, right? That's why right now there are 3,200, I believe, 3,200 ships that are stuck there right now. They cannot move because Iran is not letting them move. Watch Trump pulls us out of NATO in July. I think it's going to be sooner than July. I think it's going to be much sooner than July. If you look at when, so he started the Board of Peace, which essentially is trying to be a replacement for the UN, even though we have almost complete control over the UN, right? We have veto power. If anything goes up for vote, it has to have unanimous approval between all of the countries in the UN, and consistently, the United States and Israel are the only 2 countries that vote against a lot of very basic human rights initiatives that they put forward, like basically saying they did one not too long ago, I believe it was last year, where it's like food is a human right. Food is a human right. And the only 2 countries to vote against it were the United States and Israel. So, NATO has no real power when it comes to this. You have Israel threatening to attack a NATO country, Turkey. They have said that they are going to attack Turkey. Turkey shares a border with Syria. Syria is part of the Greater Israeli Project, which we talked about last week. Essentially, how Israel wants to take over a lot of these other countries or portions of these other countries to create the Greater Israel Project, right? And it's essentially, that's exactly what's happening in Lebanon right now. They're pushing so many people towards the north. They're destroying routes to get back to their homes, permanently displacing them. Over 1 million people, over 1,000 people have died in Lebanon so far right now, a lot of them women and children. They are attacking an incredible amount of civilian infrastructure. And we'll get to that right now, actually. I'm going to close these tabs because we're going to get to this video. I don't know if you've seen this video. That's pretty loud. I don't know if it's on pause. Oh, it's just Twitter
Fucking hell.
This is Steve Sweeney. He is a reporter with Russian Times. Now, I know what you're going to say. Ooh, Russian Times, they're bad, right? They're bad. Yes and no. They're not the best. They do fund some of the conservative pundits here in the United States, or work with them. But they do actually offer pretty good geopolitical coverage when it comes to things happening in other countries. When it comes to providing propaganda for the United States, essentially, and trying to propagandize people in the United States against the United States, and be pro-Russia, they're pretty effective at that. But when you are able to have some media literacy and are able to parse out the useful information, Russia Times can be pretty reliable. So he is currently, in this video, he is reporting from a bridge in South Lebanon, when in the middle of his report, he hears the sound of a fucking missile coming in like he's in Call of Duty and someone just got a goddamn kill streak, okay? I like you got fucking skewered in Black Ops 7. What? Watch this again. I turned the volume down. It shouldn't be as loud, but let's watch this again because it's crazy.
Further rocket attacks were reported against Nahariya and a minute.
This man survived. He survived this attack with some shrapnel wounds. Him and his cameraman. Nobody was killed, luckily. But you can't say that this was not a deliberate attack on journalists reporting in South Lebanon. Israel has notoriously been very controlling over who is allowed to report and who is allowed to report what from Israel or from any of their battle zones, right? Which right now includes southern Lebanon. Another war crime, essentially. Why doesn't this pause, dude? Okay, so this happened on Wednesday. That is a residential building. The people inside the building were given 1 hour to evacuate. 1 hour. And then they basically just World Trade that shit, blew it up from the bottom and controlled the demolition. I believe it was hit by a missile. This guy says, I don't want to hear about your 9/11 anymore, man. It's been 9/11 every day for the Middle East for the past 20 years. Fucking barbarians and murderers. That's exactly what we are. Israel destroyed a very large residential building full of people in Beirut a few minutes ago. War crime. Now, I haven't heard that there was anybody still inside. Obviously, that information is going to be closely guarded, and like I said, Israel's not going to let that stuff get out unless somebody leaks that information, if there was anybody killed in that. I haven't heard anything. Maybe if somebody has, they can correct me on it. But as far as I know, people were given a modicum, a tiny fucking insignificant amount of time to get out of this building. An hour? This is people's homes. You're looking at, okay, what do I take? What do I save? Everything that I have, everything that I love is here. And you're just going to bomb the shit out of it and literally destroy the whole building. It's not even like I can go back and get it later. They destroyed the whole fucking building, dude. The whole thing is gone. This is a residential building. No one has clarified either why this was a target. We still don't know. Okay, let's go back to this real quick. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but if infrastructure like this gets blown up, right? So this is going back to the Qatar energy statement, right, about the missile attacks on the LNG fields. If this gets blown up, as of this moment, it will take at least a decade to recover from this war, and the truth is that the world's largest energy picture is probably changed forever. This single facility produced roughly 20% of global liquefied natural gas supply, and as of 2011 had taken $70 billion to build. This shit cost $70 billion and took over a decade to get to the operational output that it was at when we fucking bombed it. What makes this even worse is that Iran's strike on this was retaliation after Israel attacked their South Pars gas field, which draws from the same natural gas reservoir, which is world's largest by far. Heck, on the list of 25 largest natural gas fields, this single reservoir holds roughly 40% of the combined recoverable reserves and is nearly 6 times bigger than the second biggest field in the world. And unlike many of the others on this list, it's only 10% at 10% depletion, meaning 90% of the gas is still there. So this is a liquid natural gas field that we could be using for years, decades, right? Because we're going to run out of we're going to run out of oil a lot faster than we're going to run out of natural gas. You have fracking, all different kinds of things. We can go a lot deeper for natural gas. It is more damaging to the environment, to the crust, to the earth itself. But we will run out of oil within, I think it's by 2050, we'll be facing a severe lack of crude oil to remove from underground. Let's look at Code Pink here. This is video from the South Pars gas field. So one of the other things that I want to talk about when it comes to attacks like this, right? Let's make this big screen so you can see what I'm talking about, even though it doesn't really look like great quality anyway. Look at this cloud. Look at this gas. This is all going into the atmosphere and will be for a long, long time. Okay? Where is it? So I gotta put like little ASIN. Let's see. Hold on. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna load some more tabs here. I gotta figure out a faster way to do this. Maybe I should just do it on this other page here. Otherwise, it's gonna take me for freaking ever. All right, let's just open it on this side, right? That makes more sense. What was that? Courtney. Let's just do this. Yeah, right? There we go. This is easier. Maybe, maybe not. Open link. There we go. Open link. Open link. It's like I can only have so many open, right? Obviously, I want my computer to frickin' run. And there's so much to talk about. Oh, this is another thing too right here. That's something I don't want to forget about. There we go. Okay. Almost done. One more. Uno más. There we go. Okay, let's shut these other ones. Okay, so speaking about the ecological disaster of this bombing of the South Pars oil fields, right? These are the largest oil fields on Earth that are currently in operation between liquid natural gas and crude oil. Okay. Climate Action Network International, okay, it's a bipartisan. Oh my God, why is it so small? That's so weird. You guys see that? It's tiny. Oh no, you can't even see it. Open a new tab. Let's see. Did it open? Okay, there it is. So the Climate Action Network is a global network of 1,900 civil society organizations in over 130 countries. Okay, this is not a think tank. This is not a for-profit anything. This is literally just a coalition of countries and civil organizations that are like, this shit is bad for the environment. This shit is really bad for the environment, okay? Climate Action Network unequivocally condemns the U.S. and Israeli military attacks on Iran and calls for an immediate and permanent ceasefire. This is an illegal act of aggression that violates international law, Iran's sovereignty, and the fundamental human rights protections it is meant to uphold, and risks dragging on already devastated region into a wider war. The normalization of civilian death in the Gaza genocide is now spilling out across the region. The bombing of a girls' school in Manab, killing more than 160 civilians, is a crime that should shock the conscience of the world. It has barely been a fucking blip, right? It was bad for the first few days, and then they keep flooding the zone. Everybody kind of forgets about it. They forget about the outrage that they felt when they first found out about that happening. Civilian infrastructure, schools, hospitals, homes, and cultural sites must never be targeted in war. The attacks on Iran's oil storage facilities have unleashed massive health and environmental harm. Burning fuel depots, poison air, land, water, and lungs that will linger in the atmosphere long after the bombing stops. So even once the fires go out, okay, the particles, the remnants of this ecological disaster are going to be felt and seen in our atmosphere, affecting our climate over the next decade, for sure. Even if it were to stop today, it's not going to stop today. They have no plans of stopping it anytime soon. And it'll probably keep happening. It'll probably get worse. This meets the criteria for ecocide. So you have the Climate Action Network claiming, essentially, that this is ecocide, okay? Not only are we committing genocide, not only are we stripping a country of their sovereignty and their rights to govern their own citizens and themselves, we're also committing ecocide on the fucking planet. We're killing people so that a few fucking billionaires can keep going and cashing in some checks on literally blood water, okay? Corporations, financial institutions, and the arms industry form part of the same fossil-fueled war economy that profits from destruction while also accelerating climate breakdown. Across the global south, from Asia to Africa to the Caribbean, are also paying the price of this expansion of violence and are vulnerable to unilateral attacks on their sovereignty by imperialist interests. Escalating wars over resources, territory, and power deepen global inequality and existing hardships. Now, I said a few minutes ago that oil is going to run out, okay? Oil is a finite resource. We probably have another 30 to 40 years of a decent supply before it starts becoming completely scarce. But by the end of the century, we will not have oil like we do now, right? So you have this war machine, big oil power that is desperately trying to retain control on the energy sector, because once oil is phased out and we start bringing in more renewable energy, solar, wind, saltwater, salinization plants, all different kinds of stuff that is more ecologically feasible and beneficial for the people on Earth than burning fossil fuels like coal and oil, okay? They will not have the same grip that they do on the financial operations of the world, okay? We got rid of the gold standard back in the 50s and 60s. I believe it was the 60s, officially, right? And the world began to run on the U.S. petrodollar, okay? Not only are all financial markets tied to the dollar, But all financial markets are tied to the dollar, which is tied to oil. Okay? You fuck with the oil, you fuck with the money, you fuck with every single market on the planet. That's just how it works. Israel's ongoing attacks on Lebanon are another alarming sign of the widening conflict across the region. Strikes have continued despite ceasefire agreements displacing civilians in southern Lebanon and illustrating how the conflict is spreading. The use of white phosphorus and other weapons harming civilians and the environment underscores the devastating human and ecological cost of this escalation. Climate justice cannot exist in a world where war and impunity are allowed to expand unchecked. Okay? We will not remain silent in the face of this aggression. We demand that the U.S. and Israeli governments be held accountable for these unlawful acts, for the war crimes committed against civilians, and for violating the international legal order that prohibits unilateral attacks on sovereign states. Governments must act now to prevent the expansion of this conflict and the further loss of life, including refusing to participate in the aggression, imposing an immediate arms embargo on the aggressors and those enabling the war economy, and ensuring that those responsible are held to account under international law. Climate Action Network stands in solidarity with the people of Iran, Palestine, Lebanon, and across the region, and with all of those around the world defending peace, human rights, democratic freedoms, and dignity, and demanding an end to occupation, aggression, and impunity. The same system that fuels these wars is the one driving the climate crisis. Ending one requires confronting the other. Okay? This requires a spine. This requires upending the petrodollar control of the world economy. And who wants to do that? Because when you do, you get got. You get shot, okay? They come and fucking kill you in your home. ExxonMobil has done it. Literally, and gotten away with it. BP has done it and gotten away with it, okay? They work with the United States government, the CIA. They go into a country. They get rid of the people that are trying to upend the petrodollar dominance. An immediate and permanent ceasefire is the only path forward. Obviously, that's a little, there needs to be more than just a permanent ceasefire, because we've seen, even with the ceasefire in Gaza, between Israel and Gaza, or Israel and Lebanon, Israel just violates the ceasefire and no one holds them to account. So ceasefires are nice to preach for in theory, and they're amazing. Obviously, we want a ceasefire. We don't want to see any of this, but you also have to have enforcement of that ceasefire, right? You have to have agencies that have the power to basically be like, yeah, we're going to keep this ceasefire in check. We're going to make sure that both parties are abiding by the agreements that they agreed to, okay? Diplomacy must replace war and international law must prevail, because climate justice cannot be built in a world at war. So, not only are we destroying the oil fields and gas fields in these other countries, but we are, that's right, Wing Lord 101, don't fuck with the money. Never fuck with the money. If you fuck with the money, you get fucked with. Okay, let's look at what Pete Hegseth said yesterday about this energy-rich country. Now, you think, too, the United States has dramatically over the last few years been able to really move its energy dependency away from other countries. We produce a lot of our own oil. We produce a lot of our own coal. We do have some green initiatives that are still around. We do have huge wind farms, and solar is still subsidized by the United States government to encourage people to get solar panels on their homes. But here we have a perfect example, again, of Pete Hegseth completely contradicting the United States position, right? The other day we watched the video of him talking about how this is a holy war, how when you have theology affecting the decisions of the government and the decisions of the military, okay, those people, those countries can't be trusted with nuclear weapons. You're literally talking about the United States. You're literally talking about Israel, okay? You're saying this, and you're speaking about Iran when you're actually talking about the United States and Israel. It is a fucking self-own, okay? Here you have Hegseth. Iran is an oil or an energy-rich country. Instead, like so many other places driven by radical ideology, instead of investing in their people, they invested in missiles and invested in launchers and UAVs. What other country does that sound like? Winglord, you have the right not to be killed. Murder is a crime unless it was done by a policeman or an aristocrat. Exactly. If the cops do it, it's fine because they're protecting capital. If the aristocrat does it, they do it through the police force because they're protecting capital. 100%. All right, let's watch this fucking demon talk for a minute and 13 seconds. I apologize for putting you through this, but it's necessary to watch.
To that point on capabilities, Iran is an energy-rich country, could be, should be. Instead, like so many other places driven by a radical ideology, they've spent that money instead of investing in their people. That's why you had millions of Iranians protesting, because they felt like their quality of life didn't match what it could be or should be. And what was the Iranian state? There's a reason we call Iran the #1 state sponsor of terrorism, because they took the money they...
Did you see him look at the fucking camera when he said that? Because he knows he's fucking talking about himself. He knows he's fucking talking about the United States. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Bro, you're literally talking about the country that you live in. We just gave you $1 trillion. You could have invested that into so many other fucking things, but instead, by radical ideology, you decided to invest in missiles and tanks and UAVs and blah, 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 blah. Like, you're literally fucking talking about yourself. And he knows it. He fucking knows it. He looks right at the fucking camera. He goes, oop, bitch ass bitch.
They make, and they invest it in tunnels, and they invest it in missiles, and they invest it in launchers and UAVs, and we are destroying and degrading that in historic proportions. But it doesn't mean they won't still have some and try to hold people at issue, which is why we're fighting every single day to continue to compel.
All right, that's enough from this fucking absolute demon. I try and keep my Pete Hegseth intake. Got to jump to a meeting. Glad I could catch you for a few. Keep the fight. Much love, brother. Thank you, my friend. Oh, Robbie, that's you. Okay. Love you, bud. I'll talk to you soon. Okay. So let's move on to this. Israel just made the single most dangerous military decision of the entire war, and nobody understands what they just triggered. Israel and the U.S. struck South Pars, the largest gas field on the planet, but here's what they either didn't know or didn't care about. South Pars is jointly managed by Iran and Qatar. They didn't just attack Iran, they attacked the energy backbone of their own Gulf allies. And then you also have Trump coming out yesterday saying, well, we didn't want them to do that. And we're very upset with them for doing that. We told them, don't do that anymore. You can't attack places that we don't give you approval to attack. You can't just go. They're still doing it anyway. But, he had to basically make it look like he's not the dog being walked, but that he is walking the dog, when we all know who our real president is, and that is fucking Benjamin Netanyahu. The IRGC just declared all major energy facilities across the entire GCC as direct and legitimate targets, and warned strikes are coming in the coming hours. Listed targets: Qatar's LNG complex, which they hit, Saudi Aramco facilities, UAE oil terminals, everything. Saudi Aramco has already evacuated workers from the Samref refinery in Yanbu. They're not waiting. They know what's coming. Iranian hackers have already hit Aramco's digital systems, posting images and issuing threats to paralyze their infrastructure. Multiple explosions just heard in Riyadh, confirmed by Reuters, AFP, and AP. That's the American Foreign Press and Associated Press. Sirens sounding in the Saudi capital. Do you understand the scale of what's happening? Qatar's LNG complex is the largest on Earth. It supplies 30% of the world's liquefied natural gas. If Iran hits it, Europe's heating supply disappears overnight. Not in months. Overnight. Immediately. They're fucked. Saudi Aramco is the most valuable company on the planet, worth Look at this. Look at this fucking number, dude. Look at this fucking number. $1.8 trillion they're worth. $1.8 trillion. Its refineries process 12 million barrels per day. One successful strike takes out 10% of the world's oil offline completely. In 2019, a single drone attack on a Saudi Aramco Abqaiq facility knocked out 5.7 million barrels per day and sent oil up 15% in one session. Iran now has 10 times the motivation and nothing left to lose. They're showing you precision strikes on Iranian targets. They're not showing you that those strikes just gave Iran justification to destroy every oil facility from Qatar to Saudi Arabia and the UAE. Here's the logic. Anyway, so we attacked essentially our own allies, dude, and then basically gave Iran even more reason to attack our allies. Israel is out of control, bro. Out of control. They're just doing whatever the fuck they want. And for no discernible reason. They're just doing it. Live will end in 5 minutes. Hold on, I gotta match. No! I gotta match up the puzzle piece because it says I'm inactive. I'm not an active TikTok. I'm here. I'm very much here. Yeah, so just absolute anarchy. Just doing whatever the fuck they want. Okay, so last week we also talked about this girl, Courtney Bonneau. She's one of the most trusted on-the-ground reporters right now in Lebanon, and she was reporting on the war there, the displacement there, and the destruction. Okay, I've gained a lot of new followers since I recorded this video a few weeks ago. The last time I was able to enter Farkella. I'm gonna butcher a lot of these names. I apologize to anybody who hears me butcher these names. I'm doing my best. Okay, I've never seen a lot of these words or these names up until now, so I'm still learning about it as well as we go. So give me some grace. Give me some grace. Also, half my mouth is numb from a failed dental surgery that I had a little over a year ago. I haven't been able to feel my tongue since November of 2024. So sometimes when I'm pronouncing words or I'm saying words, it sounds like I get a little tongue twisted. That is literally because my tongue, I can't feel it. So it's just kind of flying around in there, doing whatever the hell it decides to do. Anyway, this is the last time I was able to enter Farkella before it became an active war zone. So I'm sharing it again so people can understand the breadth of destruction of the southern villages in Lebanon. This is what ethnic cleansing looks like. Okay. Farkella and Markaba occupied South Lebanon. The Israelis destroyed most of this after the ceasefire was implemented. So we just talked about that. You can have a ceasefire, but you have to have some form of enforcing the rules and the agreements of that ceasefire. Without that, it's basically fucking meaningless.
Hi, I'm reporting to you now from occupied South Lebanon in the town of Kfar Kela, which, as you can see, has been largely destroyed by the Israeli army. And for my Western followers, I really want you to take a look around at everything here, and I want you to imagine your own childhood memories, your own neighborhood, your schools, your hospitals, your libraries, your playgrounds, everything that you know and that you love wiped out in a matter of months. This is what ethnic cleansing looks like. Hi, I'm reporting to you from occupied South Lebanon from the town of Merkaba. Earlier we were talking about ethnic cleansing and what ethnic cleansing looks like. And ethnic cleansing also looks like your town being partially destroyed, and maybe there are some houses left standing. For instance, over here in Hula, you have some houses still standing. But unfortunately, you cannot move back to your home or do any construction because there is an illegal Israeli occupation base built on top of your neighbors' homes. And you are at risk of injury or death if you come back and try to rebuild.
Craziness. Absolutely fucking wild. Imagine that happening in like some fucking Midwest, like Kansas town. Just all of a sudden the fucking, your little city hall, your little bank for your rural town just destroyed. Just absolutely fucking leveled. Lebanon has not done jack shit to Israel. Israel just wants its land. And that's why we call the IDF the IOF, Israeli Occupying Force. Their entire mission, their entire point is to occupy and gain land for themselves, for the greater Israeli project. Lebanon death toll surpasses 1,000 as strikes continue nationwide. Lebanon's health ministry said at least 1,001 people have been killed and 2,584 wounded since the start of the Israeli attacks, according to official figures released March 19th. At least 33 people were killed and 152 injured in the last 24 hours alone. Okay? 804 men, 79 women, and 118 children were among those killed. 5 hospitals and 42 ambulances have been hit, along with 18 civil defense centers and 68 health facilities. They've already proven that when we hit the school, we double tapped it. If you don't know what a double tap is, essentially they bomb the civilian infrastructure like a hospital or a school or a residential building. And then when the first responders, the paramedics, even just the civilians go in to try and rescue people, they hit it again. That's a double tap. So maybe we killed 15 on the first strike. Well, we'll just wait for a couple dozen more people to go in and try and save the survivors, and we'll kill them too. Civilians or not. Does not matter. You literally have, I'm not going to show it because it's fucking crazy and unbelievably disrespectful to the people of Lebanon. But you have the president, Isaac Herzog, literally made a video, I believe yesterday, showing an Arabic transcribed or translated version of Mein Kampf, and said these were found in all of the homes and the businesses of the people of South Lebanon. They're all huge Hitler stans. They love Hitler. Okay, bro. Sure. And the book that you're holding up, perfect condition, right? They go into these houses. We saw it during the Israeli genocide on Gaza, when they would go in these houses and they said, "Oh, look! They have an Arabic translated version of Mein Kampf. Look, it's in perfect condition. We just bombed this fucking house, but this book is in perfect condition. Look at this terrorist calendar that they have on the wall that shows all of these terror things and terror plans that they have." And then somebody goes and looks at the fucking Arabic that's written on there, and it's like, that's a doctor's schedule in a hospital. It's a fucking schedule, bro. What are you talking about? So they just lie. They just flat out lie. They just make shit up. And then they basically victim blame. Israel is probably one of the greatest perpetrators of victim blaming and gaslighting in the world. Okay, let's look at these last few tabs on the Iran-Lebanon war, and then we're going to move to some other issues that have been pissing me off lately. Okay, because that's basically what this job is for me, is just talking about shit that pisses me the fuck off, right? And stuff that I think you should know about, because it's wild what we're doing around the world. So here we have this guy, John Mersheimer.
Is a barrel.
I think that's his name, right? John? Pretty sure. Absolute bombshell. Mersheimer reveals Trump secretly allowed Iran to sell its oil to keep global prices under $100, but Israel intentionally bombed Iranian gas fields to ruin the plan, sending prices skyrocketing and destroying the U.S. economy. So the dog we claim to have on a leash bit the hand that feeds it, and we are still just petting it. We're still just like, yeah, no, that's fine. That's okay. Mearsheimer is an economist. He's a pretty well-known economist. I wouldn't say I really have an opinion on him besides he does spit some facts sometimes. So let's listen to what this old man has to say while I go pee real quick. I'll be right back.
I think it's hugely significant. And I think the fact that President Trump issued this post where he made it clear how angry he was at the Israelis for doing this is evidence of that. Look, President Trump is doing everything he can to keep oil prices under $100 a barrel. And that is not easy to do. And I would note that he has taken sanctions off Russian oil and he has allowed Iran to sell its oil. It's very important to understand that Iran is selling its oil on world markets. Iran has been allowed to send oil through the Strait of Hormuz. And the reason that Trump is allowing this is because he wants all the oil he can possibly get in the world oil markets. And he's been quite successful, at least at keeping the price of a barrel down under slightly less than $100. Well, what happened yesterday when the Israelis hit this natural gas field in Iran, and then the Iranians retaliated first against Qatar, and now apparently they're attacking Saudi Arabian sites as well, is that the price of a barrel of oil is going up. I saw it was up around $115 this morning. This is disastrous for the United States and for the world economy. And if things continue to escalate, which is a real possibility, the economic situation will only get worse. Yeah. So what happened yesterday really mattered. And that, again, is why President Trump made it clear to the Israelis, don't ever do this again.
Oh, was I just in time? Perfect timing. Look at that. Look at that. Okay. So, yeah. So, essentially, we allowed ourselves to get fucked by ourselves, is what he's saying. Okay. So, last two things to do with the energy issue of this, right? We talked about how Iran is controlling the Strait of Hormuz, right? They're not allowing ships that are not approved by them to pass through. They have to get approval from Iran to move through the Strait of Hormuz. So currently, right now, like I said, 3,200 ships are trapped in the Persian Gulf right now. Let's start at the top here. Nobody knows how fucked the situation in the Persian Gulf actually is. 3,200 ships are trapped in the Persian Gulf right now. Crews are running out of drinking water. One ship called the local port authority and begged for permission to dock just to get water. They were denied. Let that sink in. These aren't military ships. These are commercial vessels carrying oil, grain, electronics, with civilian crews who are now stranded with no supplies and no way out. Okay? 3,200 ships stuck, crews running out of drinking water, ports refusing to let them dock, multiple ships reporting the same situation. For context, the Suez Canal crisis in 2021 blocked 400 ships. Okay, this is 8 times worse, and nobody's talking about it. Now, we're talking about how it's closed, and we're talking about how that's affecting oil markets, but we're not talking about the human lives that are associated with this, okay? The people who don't control any of these military decisions, the people who don't affect any kind of government sanctioned violence or state sanctioned violence, okay? These are just workers. These are laborers. These are people on these ships that are stuck here. Now, can I say that that is Iran's fault? Yes, 100%. They are the ones that are controlling this decision, okay? But why are we in this situation to begin with, right? Iran only has a few levers of control, of ways to kind of put the situation in their benefit. Okay, points of leverage is what I meant to say, and that is controlling the Strait of Hormuz. So essentially, it's kind of like a hostage crisis, right? We have 3,200 ships being held hostage in the Strait of Hormuz by the country of Iran. But why are they doing that? Okay. I would imagine if it got to the point where there were any kinds of medical issues or whatnot, they would allow these ships to dock. They would get approval to be able to do that. But for right now, they do have to remain steadfast in their blockade, okay? Because it's really one of their only points of leverage. They're showing you missile interceptions and oil price charts. They're not showing you thousands of crew members slowly running out of drinking water in the middle of a war zone. If these ships start getting abandoned, the environmental disaster alone would be catastrophic. Thousands of tons of fuel, cargo, chemicals just sitting there. This is not a shipping disruption. This is a humanitarian crisis unfolding in real time. Prepare accordingly, okay? And this is the picture right now, so that you can see through some open source intelligence all of these ships. All these ships are stuck. Now, these guys back here, they're not as bad because they can go back out into the Indian Ocean over here. But all of these ships that normally go through this strait, right, or head up through into the Mediterranean, they can't go anywhere. They can't leave. They can't go up. They're blocked completely. They can't do anything because this is all Iran right here. This whole thing is Iran. They control it all. So, now, not only have they attacked liquefied natural gas fields and oil fields, but Iran bombed Qatar's helium plant. Okay, 33% of global supply is gone. Who's bleeding right now? Now, why is helium important? Why am I bringing this up? Helium is incredibly important when it comes to tech construction. Okay, it affects everything that has to do with chip making, chip manufacturing, all of that stuff. South Korea, 64.7% of all helium imported from Qatar. Samsung and SK Hynix fabs are on a countdown clock. Taiwan, home to TSMC, one of the largest microchip manufacturers and superconductor chip manufacturers in the world, makes 18% of global chips, said monitoring situation. Translation, quietly panicking. Japan, major chip fab and MRI manufacturer hub, first to run out if Qatar outage extends beyond 60 days. Regional semiconductor hub, Singapore, heavy Qatar helium dependency flagged by Scientific American. India imported helium from Qatar for thousands of hospital MRI machines. MRI costs already rising. Scan delays starting. Germany hosts Linde HQ, major industrial gas distributor. Helium spot prices up 100%. Linde and Air Liquide rationing supply. United States, federal helium reserve running down for years. U.S. chip fab still exposed. HP, Dell, Lenovo warned enterprise buyers 15 to 20% price hike incoming. United Kingdom, NH hospitals with MRI machines facing supply tightness, no domestic helium production. France, Air Liquide headquartered here but cannot produce new helium. Distribution only country. China imports helium for chip fabs. MRI could accelerate its own helium exploration in the Siberian region. Strategic play. Australia, exporter, one of the few alternatives. Helium production from Amadeus Basin, but not enough to fill Qatar's gap because, like we've been saying, 30% of the world's energy market is from the Middle East, from these few countries, from this very small region. Oil, natural gas, helium. Now that also looks like this. The Middle East share of global commodity supply now at risk. Okay, they supply 45% of sulfur, LPG. What does LPG stand for? Butane, propane. So probably liquid propane gas. Sulfur, liquid propane gas, crude oil, helium, methanol, aluminum, urea and ammonia, which is important for crops, which is important for fertilizer, liquid natural gas, and naphtha, that I'm not too sure about, petrochemical feedstock. So that sounds like it has something to do with livestock feed, something that they probably put in there to I don't know, do something scientific that I'm not sure about. But either way, all of these things, and major percentages, almost half of the world's sulfuric acid and fertilizers comes from the Middle East. Okay, so this is huge. This war is not only going to affect crude oil and liquid natural gas, but it is also going to affect all of these other energy markets. Okay, from there, I want to look at two last things, and that is the F-35 program. So earlier we talked about how it has, over the lifespan of the F-35 program in the United States, never, ever in history has a F-35 been shot down or, I believe, even hit. Okay? $2 trillion to develop this over the last 20 years. F-35 is actually being phased out. Apparently, there is a new plane that is going to be taking over called the F-47. I really hope they didn't name that because of Trump being the 47th president. That would be fucking crazy. 47 also used to be my favorite number, my lucky number, and I've had a strained relationship with it since Trump's start of his second term. Anyway, Jerusalem Post confirms an American F-35 has been hit for the first time in history. Iran's air defenses, which Trump said today were completely destroyed, okay, just hit America's most advanced stealth fighter. Now, you have Trump saying their nuclear program has been completely destroyed. He said that their air defenses have been completely destroyed. But what we know is that Iran is not sending out all of their military resources at one time. They're doing it in waves, because while they can withstand the bombing and everything that's happening from the United States and Israel, right? They know that they have to be strategic about when they retaliate and when they strike, okay? So they wait for a moment of surprise, some kind of cover, to be able to roll out these weapons, these defensive weapons, to be able to strike against the United States and Israel effectively, okay? The F-35 cost $80 million per aircraft. It has never been hit in combat in its entire operational history until today. Now, you also had Trump at a press conference with the Japanese Prime Minister talking about this and how the air defenses are completely destroyed, blah, 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 blah. And literally like 3 hours later, it broke that an F-35 was shot down, hit and shot down, okay? Trump said the defenses are destroyed, and F-35 got hit. Joe Kent confirmed there's no nuclear program worth stopping. Hegseth told his son they died to stop a nuclear Iran that didn't exist. 14 Americans dead, $21 billion spent, 0 allied warships, Pearl Harbor invoked to Japan, right? So yesterday, also in that press conference with the Japanese Prime Minister, Trump literally goes, "Why would we tell anybody about our plans to attack Iran? Japan didn't tell us about Pearl Harbor." The fuck? Are you fucking kidding me, dude? And Iran just hit the plane we said they couldn't touch. So this country with completely devastated air capabilities just shot down our best fucking fighter jet. Look at this. Now, hey, rest in peace to that brave man and woman, or whoever the fuck was in there. You're pretty dumb for being a part of this. But nobody deserves to die. Nobody deserves to die on either side. It's always unjustifiable. Now, to round out this whole thing, I wanted to save this best little piece for last. And there's a few of them out there, but this is the one I've seen the most. And a couple of them you do need VPNs to use or to see because they're blocked in the United States. This is the cost of the Iran war per day since it started. March 1st to today, to now, 19.693, so $19.7 billion. And that is a conservative estimate. Some have said it's much higher than that. Some have said, obviously, a lot of people that are in favor of this war are going to say it's less than that, or they're just not even going to talk about it at all. But this is the current tracker counting how much we're spending on the war. Look at that. Look how fast that goes up. $12,000 a second is what we're spending on this. $12,000 a second. Now, earlier when I was talking about $1 billion, right? $200 billion going to the Pentagon that they asked for. $12,000 a second. Okay. You wouldn't even be able to make or spend $1 billion in 530 something years, right? We talked about when Columbus sailed to the New World, 1492. If you got $5,000 a day, we're spending $12,000 a second to do this war. $12,000. You know what $12,000 could get me? Just $12,000. 1 second. Just divert your funding for 1 second to me, and I would be able to take care of all of my hospital bills that I've accrued and upcoming ones for the next couple months for the next few doctor's appointments that I have, and probably be able to pay off like most of my credit card debt. What could you do with $12,000 a second? What could you do with $12,000? Anybody? Just tell me something. $12,000 a second. Okay? Do you make $12,000 a quarter of a year? Probably not. You probably don't even come close to that. Okay. Let's move on to our next set of talking points here. We're going to talk about Kansas, Florida, and we are going to mention the Middle East again. But all of these have to do with essentially women's bodily autonomy, trans issues in Kansas, and sexual abuse and torture claims in Israel and occupied West Bank. So this guy, I'm assuming if you're watching me, most of you know Tizzy Ent. He is a very influential social media person who talks about all different kinds of human rights violations and even on a basic level, trying to find people who commit acts of racism, call them out, hold them accountable, hold their feet to the fire. So if you haven't heard, in Kansas, they basically passed a law stating that if your name or sex doesn't match your birth certificate, your driver's license is now null and void, and you have to go get a brand new one, and you have to put your birth sex, the gender that you were designated when you were born. That has to be on your ID. Otherwise, your ID is completely null and void. And now you have to spend time and energy and resources getting the document that you already fucking had, right? So let's watch this.
You may have heard that Kansas passed a law that invalidates the driver's license of trans people and also makes it where you can sue a trans person for using a public restroom. And the ACLU posted that a judge refused to block that law. They're going to continue fighting it, but so far that law is in place and is being acted upon. And by being acted upon, I mean Kansas revoked 1,700 transgender driver's license so far. 1,700 people have lost their ability to drive a car because they are trans. Let me ask you a question that I don't hear a lot of people asking in regards to all of this. How did they know who the trans people were? How did they know which licenses to revoke? Outside of they were keeping a list of who those people were.
That's
now
Nazi
think about,
shit.
Historically speaking, when a government or an entity keeps lists of marginalized groups of people and treats them differently or revokes certain rights that they have, how that's played out historically. Spoiler alert, it's not been great. This is how it works. You revoke the rights of a smaller group first to get people used to that shit, and then you start rolling it out. You start going for larger groups. An attack on one of us is an attack on all of us.
That's right. I don't give a fuck if you don't agree with trans rights. These are human fucking rights. And you need to reevaluate how you're looking at some of these situations if you feel like this is okay for people to be treated. They did not know. I don't think there was a list. He mentioned they would only know by birth certificate differences. My opinion, fuck transphobia. We don't know for sure. This is speculation, right? We haven't seen a list that they've been keeping, but it does make sense. And we have some of these hardcore right-wing governments around the states that are doing shit that is illegal because they know that they're not going to be prosecuted by this right-wing government, this administration. Right now, it's basically fair game. It's basically free range. They can pretty much do whatever the fuck they want. And we won't know exactly how they figured out all of these people are trans. Maybe it is just birth certificate differences, but how would they know? They have to have aggregated this information into one actionable piece of intel. And that does point to some type of list, right? Also, the government has also stated in the last few months that they are not keeping lists on people that they have no list of people that are considered, Antifa or dissidents of our political regime that is in control of this of our country. And that's bullshit, because then you have other people coming out and say, yeah, they fucking do. Yeah, they definitely have lists. There are still multiple lists that the federal government keeps on all of us, tabs on all of us. Books that you buy, things that you watch, things that you say online. It's all good, Michaela. I know where you're at. I know what you're saying. I get it. And you're right. We don't know for sure. But this does point to a list, and our government has a very detailed history of keeping lists on people, and those especially that we decide are working against the intentions of our ill-advised government. Okay, so now to Florida, the fucking hellscape that is Florida. Obviously, we know that there have been in the last few years since the overturning of Roe v. Wade, abortions have become a lot harder to get the necessary health care, health options and decisions that women need to be able to make on their own for their own health. It has become increasingly difficult in red states, Texas especially, Florida especially, Alabama, Missouri, I believe, has some of the most strict anti-abortion laws in the country, but not as bad as Texas and Florida. 1,000,000%. Both states are like absolute hellscapes for women that are pregnant. So just take a listen to this fucking bullshit.
A disturbing new report in ProPublica reveals that Florida judges have ordered multiple women in active labor to undergo C-sections that they did not want. Florida is taking the legal apparatus of fetal personhood further than any other state thus far, subjugating the rights of women who are in their right mind to make decisions about their own bodies. These hearings, as they call them, took place over Zoom, were forced on these women by hospital staff where a judge appeared on the screen. The women had no time to prepare and no counsel to argue on their side. If that feels like an obvious breach of due process rights to you, I would have to agree. It's also not a coincidence that both the women in this story are Black and are much more likely to experience subpar maternity care and abuse by the legal system. One of these women was even a professional birthing doula, so to try and argue that she couldn't wrap her mind around the risks or the stakes of that situation is just bad faith. Allowing the courts to make what can amount to life and death decisions about women in their right minds and their bodies ultimately makes women second-class citizens in this country.
Which, unfortunately, as of right now, not saying I agree with it, but you are. If you're a woman and you're watching this, you are and you have been, unfortunately. And there are people fighting for your right not to be a second-class citizen. But unfortunately, those in power have made that almost fucking impossible. And they will continue to do so. They don't want women to have the right to vote. They don't want women to have the right over their own bodily autonomy. And that's fucking fucked up. Unacceptable. And we need to pay attention to all of these things that are happening. Understand what's going on. Understand how to fight back. And I think, I like to think of, it's not even my theory, but the pendulum theory, where you have political ideologies and different things on a pendulum. Essentially, they swing back and forth. It goes towards the right wing sometimes. It goes towards the left wing sometimes. But when you go too far to either side, the other side is going to push back, and the pendulum will swing the opposite way. And I think we are moving in the right direction. I understand that, the overturning of Roe v. Wade was a huge blow to women's reproductive rights. And it is a step back, 100%. But I think we are on the right track going forward. I think we're going to be making the steps forward. And I'd like to be hopeful that some of those rights will be coming back stronger than ever. So, it makes me not hopeful, but I think the majority of Americans support women's reproductive rights and the right to reproductive health care. And it can only go on for so long before there is a tipping point and it goes back into the other direction, and rights are restored. Now, we've talked about the theys, the women. You don't really hear stories about men getting sexually abused. Trigger warning. This is about sexual violence against a Palestinian in the occupied West Bank by the IOF. CNN interviewed Quasi Abu al-Kabesh, a 29-year-old Palestinian shepherd who was sexually assaulted by Israeli settlers in the occupied West Bank village of Khirbet Hamusa. He told J Diamond 1 that settlers zip-tied his genitals, paraded him through the village while beating him, threatened to rape women, assaulted children, and stole hundreds of his sheep. This is what people are dealing with. And this is in the occupied West Bank. Hamas is not in control of the occupied West Bank. They can't even say, oh, well, he was a Hamas sympathizer. They don't have any control. They don't have any power there whatsoever. So let's watch this brief news report.
We can now add sexual assault to the types of violence Palestinians say they face from Israeli settlers here in the occupied West Bank. This is the tent where a Palestinian man named Qusay says Israeli settlers stormed in, seized him before using these zip ties to bind him by his hands and legs. He then says they cut off his underwear before tying his genitals with one of these zip ties and then parading him around his village in front of his family.
جروني على الخيمة جوا.
They pulled me
أول
inside my
بلشوا
tent
فيه
and started
ضرب
beating me.
بوكسات. ضرب
They
بوكسات
beat me.
وربطوا
They
جري.
tied up my
أخذوا
legs,
الحزام
grabbed my
على
belt,
الشاط. قطعوا هذا
cut
يقطع
it,
ها.
as you
شايف
can
كيف؟
see.
قطع.
They cut it.
وقطعوا
And
البوكسر
the
اللي
boxers I
لابسه.
was wearing.
وربطوا عضو
They
ذكرهم
zip tied my
كتين
genitals
ويضربوا
while I was
فيه
bound and
ويضربوا
continued to
فيه
beat me.
وجروني من هناك وحطوا علي مي.
And then poured water
والتراب.
over me.
What
and
was going
dirt.
through your mind when that was happening?
شو قتلونا قتل
I thought
موت.
they were
شو
going to kill me,
قتل موت.
beat me to death.
Qusay says the settlers also stole hundreds of his sheep that used to be in this pen right here. Israeli authorities are investigating this incident, but
Israeli
we've
authorities
seen
are
that these
investigating. I'm
investigations
sure-
too often don't lead to any arrests.
Exactly.
And settler impunity continues.
So, just a few headlines that really pissed me the fuck off when I read about them. And obviously, some of these stories do not get enough coverage. My channel is small, obviously. But I would be remiss if I didn't share the things that make me want to do this, make me want to have this channel, make me want to talk about these things that people are not hearing about. Obviously, this was on CNN, but it's a small 1.5 minute segment, and this is all too frequent. This is not something that is, once in a while happening. This happens all the fucking time to people. Okay, literally, a week ago, you had the courts in Israel dropping all charges on the IOF soldiers that were accused and found it was credible enough to bring them to court of raping a Palestinian prisoner to death. They raped them to death. And then when Israel was like, hey, you can't do that, there was a fucking January 6th style insurrection for pro-rape in Israel. People were storming military facilities going, no, we definitely deserve the right to do this. Palestinians are subhuman. They deserve it whenever it happens. So, again, these are just a few of the stories that are happening. Please, feel free. Send me any stories that you've heard that I may not have mentioned on the broadcast. You can send them to my email, jcondi47@gmail.com. I will take a look at anything, and if it screams to me that it is being underreported or more people need to know about it or anybody needs to know about it, I will talk about it. I will report on it, and we will go over it. Okay. Got a few more things to go over this week on Capitol Hill, the shenanigans on Capitol Hill. We had the confirmation hearings for Mark Wayne Mullen, the new director of Homeland Security, after Kristi Noem was fired or laterally promoted, whatever the fuck that means, to what was it? Shield of the Americas. Wild. What a fucking way to spin that, dude. So we got 2 AP articles that we're going to go over real quick. First one, DHS pick Mullen says he regrets calling Alex Preddy a deranged individual. So if you've forgotten for any reason, Alex Preddy, Renee Good, 2 people killed in Minnesota. There are numerous people that have been killed by ICE and CBP, including Keith Porter, including Oscar, I can't remember his last name, gentleman, I believe I want to say also in Minnesota. I'm not entirely sure. I'll need to look into that again. Senator Mark Wayne Mullen, President Donald Trump's pick for Homeland Security Secretary, appeared before senators for a confirmation hearing where he faced questions over his vision for the department tasked with carrying out the administration push for mass deportations. Now, he would not only be in charge of the Department of Homeland Security. Department of Homeland Security is an umbrella for a bunch of different organizations. FEMA, Customs and Border Patrol, ICE, obviously, and another big one is CISA, which is like cyber security, and then also the TSA. So they're also in charge of our travel security and stuff like that, even though it's been proven that TSA does nothing to make travel any safer for anyone. But he did walk back his statements saying that Alex Preddy showed up to the protests in Minneapolis trying to cause maximum damage and maximum carnage, and that he was a deranged individual. I believe Kristi Noem called him a domestic terrorist. So straight up, like a few hours after he died. Didn't even know who the fuck he was. Didn't know why he was there. Didn't know anything about the situation. When she was grilled upon it, she was like, I don't even know what happened. I have no idea. I don't even know who you're talking about. Michael who? Ooh. Markwayne Mullin is a 48-year-old Republican senator who has represented Oklahoma since 2023 and was in the U.S. House for a decade before that. He's a citizen of the Cherokee Nation and a former mixed martial arts fighter with a reputation as one of Trump's fiercest defenders in the Senate. Former DHS Secretary Kristi Noem appeared to increasingly become a liability for the president, with questions arising over spending at her department and her conduct over two protesters, after two protesters were killed in Minneapolis by federal officials earlier this year. Trump announced Noem's firing earlier this month after she faced a rare grilling by GOP lawmakers on Capitol Hill. Mullin is walking into a battle with congressional Democrats demanding reforms at ICE, which led to a month-long lapse in funding for DHS under a partial government shutdown. Republicans are hoping that switching out Noem for Mullin will appease Democrats. Why would it appease Democrats? This guy is worse than Kristi Noem. Kristi Noem killed her dog. She's a horrible fucking human being. Nobody fucking likes her. And the only reason she was fired was because she spent $200 million on an ad campaign that didn't center around the president. It mostly centered around her. And the president got butthurt about that, and he said, okay, you're fired now. If he was really that pissed off about the two protesters that were killed in Minneapolis, why didn't she get fired weeks or months beforehand? That happened in January. He got into a heated back and forth with Senator Rand Paul. Apparently in the past he had said, that it was justified, the attacks that Senator Rand Paul suffered a few years ago. He ended up getting 6 broken ribs and a bunch of other shit. And basically Senator Markwayne Mullin was like, yeah, that shit was justified. So obviously they had a little bit of a contentious back and forth. So he ultimately ended up getting pretty much confirmed. John Fetterman broke the tie on this committee, and essentially his vote will go before the full Senate next week, I believe, because I'm pretty sure they want to get him in as fast as possible. So say hello to our new DHS secretary. We also had a hearing with the intelligence community that was a fucking clown show, dude. Pretty wild stuff happened there. Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, she is the boss of Kash Patel, and over here in the picture where you can't see is Director Radcliffe, the director of the CIA. She's their boss, essentially. Let's watch this little video real quick.
Annual Worldwide Threat Assessment hearing.
Never mind. This is the whole. I thought it was just a clip. Okay, never mind. We're not going to watch a 2-hour thing. Going back and forth, essentially, basically saying some of the big things, some of the big takeaways from this hearing. It's apparently not the intelligence community's responsibility to determine what a threat is, and that is only the president's choice. That is up to the president. It's not up to the intelligence community, even though they are the ones that prepare the intelligence briefings for the president, and they're not allowed to say what is a threat, what isn't a threat. The president has sole discretion over that. Spoiler alert, that's bullshit. That's not right. That is wrong. Okay? Here you have Senator Warner. You were involved in an FBI operation to seize ballots in Georgia. Where is the authority for you to involve yourself in a domestic law enforcement activity? Let's watch this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Gabbard, the whole country knows that you were recently involved in an FBI operation to seize ballots in Fulton County, Georgia. Yet this was despite the fact that the warrant showed no foreign interference or nexus. Matter of fact, the warrant was based entirely on conspiracy theories that have already been examined and rejected repeatedly. Now, where is the authority for you to involve yourself in a domestic law enforcement activity?
Thank you, Vice Chairman. I appreciate the question. As you know, I've addressed every issue you've raised in detail in a letter, but I'm grateful for the opportunity to do it in this forum. As you stated, Congress provided by statute, ODNI, with the responsibility of election security and counterintelligence in 2021. As you also know, ODNI has purview and oversight.
I know the history very well, but could you just
I am addressing the question. ODNI also has purview and overview over two domestic-related agencies, the Department of Homeland Security and the FBI, both of which have purview over election security responsibilities to ensure the integrity of our elections. I want to correct one of your statements that you've made multiple times, which is false. I did not participate in a law enforcement activity, nor would I, because that does not exist within my authorities.
You were present on the scene. Are the photos of you on the scene false?
I was at Fulton County, sir, at the request of the president, and to work with the FBI to observe this action that had long been awaited. I was not aware of what was in the warrant or was not in the warrant.
And what was the president's specific request for you to go to? What was the specific request that was made by the president for you to show up in Fulton County?
To go and observe the FBI's activities on this issue.
So why?
When you look at the fort, your question, sir.
Do you have the answer why the president was knowing about this affidavit before it was even served?
I'm not aware that the president knew about an affidavit before it was served.
Then why was he sending you to Fulton County?
This occurred the day that the FBI had it approved, their warrant approved by a local judge, and they began to execute this. To address your question, sir, about the foreign nexus question, in order for us to better understand the vulnerabilities in our election systems that may exist today as we look to 2026, and yes, we are very focused on trying to make sure that this election is one that the American people have faith.
Director Gabbard, I've got a number of questions. Director Gabbard, I have a number of questions. Let me ask my next question, please.
She's just filibustering.
You have not.
She's literally just saying shit. Like, she's not answering the questions, right? She's dancing around it. She's not. She's not getting down to the point. She's just trying to waste his time so he can ask less questions. Essentially, they all have a limited amount of time. They can't just talk for forever. Otherwise, these hearings would last fucking weeks, right? So they have a specific amount of time, and if the person answering the questions can filibuster long enough, then those questions don't get asked, and you can just move on. Then there was this exchange. Okay, this is Senator Ossoff. He's from Georgia. The director of intelligence refuses to say the evidence showed Iran was an imminent nuclear threat to the United States. And this is actually going to tie into the next segment that we go into, which, I mean, so sorry to drag it back to Iran, but that is pretty much the biggest news story that is dominating the world right now, right?
Should be timely.
Let's watch this real quick. This is some wild shit. This is saying, essentially, too, that this is none of this is her responsibility. Even though last year, she said that Iran did not have nuclear weapon capabilities. And after she had said that, the Trump administration, but Trump directly said, I don't give a fuck about what she said. I don't give a fuck about her assessment of their nuclear program. She's fucking stupid. she's an idiot.
Under the law, you are responsible for providing national intelligence to the president, correct?
Yes.
And to the heads of executive branch departments and agencies, yes?
Yes.
And to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs and senior military commanders?
Across the IC, yes.
And to the Senate and the House and relevant committees, correct?
Yes.
And the law states that the national intelligence you provide to Congress, quote, should be timely, objective, and independent of political considerations, correct?
Yes.
And you noted in your opening statement you're here fulfilling a statutory responsibility and that your testimony, quote, represents the IC's assessment of threats,
That's right.
correct? That opening statement, as submitted to the committee in advance of this hearing, stated that as a result of last summer's airstrikes, quote, Iran's nuclear enrichment program was obliterated, end quote, correct?
That's right.
And is that in fact the assessment of the intelligence community?
Yes.
So the assessment of the intelligence community is that Iran's nuclear enrichment program was obliterated by last summer's airstrikes.
Yes.
In the opening statement you submitted to the committee last night also stated, quote, there has been no effort since then to try to rebuild their enrichment capability, end quote, correct?
That's right.
And that's the assessment of the intelligence community.
Yes.
The White House stated on March 1st of this year that this war was launched and was, quote, a military campaign to eliminate the imminent nuclear threat posed by the Iranian regime, end quote. That's a statement from the White House. Quote, the imminent nuclear threat posed by the Iranian regime. Was it the assessment of the intelligence community that there was an imminent nuclear threat posed by the Iranian regime?
The intelligence community assessed that Iran maintained the intention to rebuild and to continue to grow their nuclear enrichment capability.
Was it the assessment of the intelligence community that there was a, quote, imminent nuclear threat posed by the Iranian regime, yes or no?
Senator, the only person who can determine what is and is not an imminent threat is the president.
False.
And
This
he
is the
made that
worldwide. This is the
determination.
worldwide threats hearing where you present to Congress national intelligence, timely, objective, and independent of political considerations. You've stated today that the intelligence community's assessment is that Iran's nuclear enrichment program was obliterated and that, quote, there had been no efforts since then to try to rebuild their enrichment capability. Was it the intelligence community's assessment that nevertheless, despite this obliteration, there was a, quote, imminent nuclear threat posed by the Iranian regime? Yes or no?
It is not the intelligence community's responsibility to determine what is and is not an imminent threat.
Okay.
That is up to
Here's
the
the
president
problem.
based on a volume
No,
of
it is
information
precisely
that he receives.
it is precisely your responsibility to determine what constitutes a threat to the United States. This is the worldwide threats hearing.
So literally saying, not my job. Not my job. I did
Under the law, you are.
My job was not my job. Like, what? What the fuck are you even saying, dude? What are you fucking saying? What do you mean it's not your job? Your job is to go, hey, listen, we came across this this intelligence. I'm going to share it with you. It has nothing to do with Republicans or Democrats. This just has to do with credible threats that we perceive across the world. It has nothing to do with political interference or any kind of political persuasion. This is strictly fact-based, fact-sharing, report sharing with Congress, with the president, with people on different types of committees that are that have the permission and classified clearance to look at this type of stuff. Okay. She's not there to tell him, hey, well, we think, Democrats or Republicans might react this way or that way to this intelligence that we've collected. They're literally just fact finders. That's all they should be. But that's never what they're just going to be, and especially Tulsi Gabbard. Right? She's going to try and retain as much plausible deniability so that way she can, her political career isn't over, even though to avoid a yes or no answer repeatedly and instead give a long statement of excuses, make obvious she is refusing to take a point. Exactly. Old, easy trick by anyone who lies. 100%. So, her credibility in being anti-war, which she had held for a long time, because if you remember, she ran for president. She was in, I believe, the Democratic primary to run for president, which is crazy. You know what I mean? She's more, if anything, a right-leaning centrist. I would say right-wing, but a right-leaning centrist that was always notoriously anti-war, which is bullshit. She was not anti-war. Okay, so next up, right, we're talking about that. We're talking about Iran's capabilities of having a nuclear weapon. Obviously, we talked about that earlier, but now, earlier this week, and we mentioned it briefly, this gentleman named Joe Kent, given Joe's a bad name. 1, 2, 3. He was the director of the counterintelligence for the United States. So this guy worked alongside Tulsi Gabbard in the intelligence community to essentially try and come up with ways to work against terrorism, right? Counterterrorism, right? We're trying to counter the terrorism is the goal, as they put it. So he quit earlier this week and said that it was because of Israel that we went to war with Iran, which is, has been stated by Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, which has been mentioned by Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, and the President. All three have said we went to war against Iran because of Israel. Okay, they've all kind of walked it back at some point or in some way, or try to change their story or whatnot. But it's basically been the same across the books. So he went on Tucker Carlson this week. Tucker Carlson obviously is another fucking demon, another literally a fucking piece of shit. He's probably one of the most influential talking heads out there right now. And I am not giving him any credence. I am not giving him any support. I think Tucker Carlson is an awful human being. But this conversation that they had was very important to understand where he's coming from. Now, one thing, so before we get started, okay, Joe Kent, a little bit of a background on Joe Kent. He is a lifelong Republican, huge Trump supporter, big supporter of the overturning the 2020 election, doesn't believe in COVID vaccines, and has notoriously been labeled an anti-Semite for his positions on Israel and stuff like that. Now, there is a distinction between being anti-Semitic, right, and being anti-Israel, okay, or anti-Zionism, right? And, spoiler alert, I'm a big supporter of Hassan. Hassan Piker is one of the reasons why I started doing this, or why I want to do this. And a very good point that he has is that if we look at Ben Shapiro and Candace Owens, that is a perfect example of being anti-Semitic but pro-Israel, so it's okay. If you're anti-Semitic and anti-Israel, obviously that's, you shouldn't be anti-Semitic at all. But Candace Owens is very anti-Semitic. And now she's anti-Israel. So now Ben Shapiro hates her. But when she was pro-Israel and anti-Semitic, she was totally allowed to be on Ben Shapiro's channel, right? He built Candace Owens, essentially. Gave her wings to fly, and when she flew away, he got mad and was like, oh, she's a bad person. She's been a bad person since the start, Ben. But because she supported Israel, you deemed her to be okay. So, after a lifetime of service to the Imperial Death Machine, including running kill squads for the CIA's Special Activities Center and defending Eddie Gallagher, who is a war criminal, Joe Kent suddenly decides his decades of sanctioned murder was on behalf of Israel bad, rather than the U.S. good. And right after he had essentially put in his resignation letter, this comes out in Jewish Insider Joe Kent's statement on support for Israel and oppression to anti-Semitism. This is when he was running for Congress back in 2022. Israel, a mutually beneficial ally and close friend. I am intimately familiar with the help that Israel has provided the United States. During my military service in the Middle East, my fellow soldiers and I often relied on intelligence provided by the IDF and their intelligence agencies to help us accomplish our missions and keep us safe. The United States and Israel share common enemies in the Middle East, from terrorist groups like Hamas and Hezbollah to the totalitarian government of Iran. Building close economic, diplomatic, and military relations is in the United States' best interest and something I advocate for as a member of Congress. Okay, so we don't need to really read much more than that. He was pro-Israel. So even if he was pro-Israel, if we don't get to fusion hydrogen, mankind will eventually revert to the Stone Age. Are you talking about? You're talking about for like energy purposes, like if we don't get a handle on fusion. Are you talking about cold fusion? It's a good point though. Yeah, I mean, well, I don't know. One thing I did find out about. Hydrogen burns clear. It burns so hot that it's clear and you can't see it. So if somebody's on fire from hydrogen cars, which were supposed to be a big thing decades ago, you wouldn't see that they're on fire. Anyway, but greed. Sad face. Hey, man, I hear you. Okay, so let's listen to a couple of things that Joe Kent decided to share with Tucker Carlson. First one being about Iran's nuclear weapons capabilities.
Was Iran on the verge of getting a nuclear weapon?
No, they weren't, 3 weeks ago when this started, and they weren't in June either. I mean, the Iranians have had a religious ruling, a fatwa, against actually developing a nuclear weapon since 2004. That's been in place since 2004. That's available in the public sphere. But then also we had no intelligence to indicate that fatwa was being disobeyed or it was on the cusp of being lifted. The Iranian strategy, it's actually pretty pragmatic. The Iranians are obviously aware of what's taking place in their region, and their strategy was to not completely abandon their nuclear program because they saw what happened to Muammar Gaddafi in Libya when he said, hey, I've got no more nukes. I'll do what you say. I'll give up my nukes.
And we gave him the Nobel Peace Prize?
Yeah, we regime changed him, and he was executed by his own people in the most horrific way.
Oh, sodomized by a bayonet. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's that's the lesson I think that the entire region took from that when Hillary Clinton.
Unfortunately, that is what the neocon, neoliberal warmongers. That's the lesson that they showed everyone in the region. And then conversely, the Iranians also knew that if they came out and said, "Okay, we've got a nuke," whether they were bluffing or not, Saddam Hussein, Iraq right next door. So they kind of had
he hung. I think
he was hung by his own people. After a bloody war that's still essentially going on inside of Iraq. So the Iranians' position, when viewed from the lens of the region, was actually fairly pragmatic. They were preventing, themselves from developing a bomb, but they still wanted the ability. They wanted the ability to enrich. They wanted the ability to have some components so that they weren't completely stripped of it. And when we always assessed that they were either several months or a year, 2 years away from actually being able to develop a nuclear weapon. And that's not because the Iranians are stupid people. I think we can tell right now that the Iranians are anything but stupid. They had the ability, I think, that the brain power to actually develop one, or they could have simply traded a ton of oil with Pakistan or with someone else to actually get a nuclear weapon. They were not doing that. We had no intelligence to indicate that they were.
Okay, so again, another person in the intelligence community saying Iran did not have nuclear weapons, right? They did not have the capability to build a nuclear weapon. They did not have the capability to deploy a nuclear weapon, okay? This is a
probably heard this
fun little compilation of how long this warning of nuclear Iran, 33 years, for 33 years, they have been 2 weeks away from a nuclear weapon.
Before.
Iran has never given up its quest for nuclear weapons and the missiles to deliver them.
That's because Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has been saying this for more than 30 years, claiming Iran is close to having
nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapons. Atomic bombs.
In 1992, as a member of parliament, Netanyahu addresses the Knesset. He says, within 3 to 5 years, we can assume that Iran will become autonomous in its ability to develop and produce a nuclear bomb. 3 years later, in his book Fighting Terrorism, he repeats the same time frame, 3 to 5 years.
So now we're 3 years
Fast
later.
forward to
same time frame.
2002. Netanyahu testifies before a U.S. congressional committee actively calling for the invasion of Iraq.
Are there any other nations that you would recommend that the United States launch preemptive attacks upon at this point?
The two nations that are vying, competing with each other, who will be the first to achieve nuclear weapons, is Iraq and Iran.
The invasion happens
Iraq
months
did
later.
Not have weapons of mass destruction.
No weapons of mass destruction are found in Iraq. This is a fragment of a 2009 U.S. State Department cable released by WikiLeaks. Netanyahu tells members of Congress that Iran is 1 or 2 years away from being capable of developing nuclear weapons.
Just keeps it going.
It's 2012, and Netanyahu is holding up his infamous cartoon bomb at the UN General Assembly.
By next spring, at most, by next summer.
Fucking Bugs Bunny is gonna fucking attack us with an Acme bomb. How does anyone take this guy seriously, bro? How?
At current enrichment rates, they will have finished the medium enrichment and move on to the final stage. From there, it's only a few months, possibly a few weeks, before they get enough enriched uranium for the first bomb.
Christ, dude.
And now, 33 years after Netanyahu's first so-called imminent warning, Israel attacks Iran.
And if not stopped, Iran could produce a nuclear weapon in a very short time. It could be a year, it could be within a few months, less than a year.
That's despite the U.S. Director of National Intelligence saying Iran isn't building a nuclear weapon.
So this is
months
Tulsi Gabbard
earlier.
last March.
Iran lied.
But for Netanyahu,
Big time.
the slogan has been the same for decades. Dmitry Medvedenko, Al Jazeera.
Okay. So now we have multiple sources that are stating they did not have access or the ability to launch or produce nuclear weapons. Okay. So there's another big thing that came out from this interview between Joe Kent and Tucker Carlson. Now this is the part that turned, everyone against him. Basically said that he's an anti-Semite, which he is an anti-Semite when it comes to this, because he has had interviews with Groypers and Nick Fuentes, who is a out and about anti-Semite, 100%, and white supremacist. But basically, he is perpetuating the theory that Charlie Kirk was assassinated by Israel for his lack of support for bombing Iran last year, right? So we bombed Iran in July, I believe, of last year, and then Charlie Kirk was assassinated in September.
So we knew each other, and the last time I saw Charlie Kirk on this earth was in June in the West Wing in the stairway. And I said hi to him, and he looked me in the eye, and he said very loudly, and you've been in the West Wing, it's small, it's a tight space, and he said, "Joe, stop us from getting into a war with Iran," very loudly.
He was single-minded.
And he walked off, and he went, I believe, into the Oval. So when one of President Trump's closest advisors, who is vocally advocating for us to not go to war with Iran and for us to rethink at least our relationship with the Israelis, and then he's suddenly publicly assassinated, and we're not allowed to ask any questions about that. It's a data point. It's a data point that we need to look into.
What do you mean when you say we're not allowed to ask any questions about that?
We've been told that this individual, Robinson, is a lone gunman, and maybe he is. But the investigation that I was a part of, the National Counterterrorism Center was a part of, we were stopped from continuing to investigate. And the FBI will say that they stopped that because they wanted to turn everything over to the Utah state authorities. Everything's going to trial. It's very, very sensitive. But there was still a lot for us to look into that I can't really get into, but there was still linkage for us to investigate that we needed to run down. And I'm not making any conclusions. I'm not saying
No, I don't think you are.
because of this happened. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying there's unanswered questions. We know the pressure because of the text messages that have been made public that Charlie was under a lot of pressure from a lot of pro-Israel donors. And again, we know Charlie was advocating to President Trump against this war with Iran.
All right. So there's that. And then the last thing is Tucker Carlson asked Joe Kent why the Thomas Crooks surveillance tapes haven't been released. Now, if you remember, Thomas Crooks is the suspect in the Trump assassination or attempted assassination back in Pennsylvania when he was still on the campaign trail in June of 2024 or July of 2024. So let's just watch this video real quick.
Successful assassination attempt, like the current president was the subject of a near successful assassination attempt, like recently.
Yeah.
And we're just not going to look into very obvious leads or divulge information that everyone knows they have. For example, the surveillance tape from the shooting range at which Thomas Crooks trained, because it would answer the question, was he training with somebody? And if so, who? They have that footage and they won't release it. What could possibly be the explanation for that?
I know what the result is. The result is people come to their own conclusions, and this is where like crazy conspiracy theories come from. And then those conspiracy theories usually are easy to debunk or make the people saying them sound crazy. So then the actual question never gets answered.
I'm sorry. Can you say that for people who haven't lived in Washington? Okay, I try to explain this to people all the time, because this has been ongoing since at least the Kennedy assassination. But this is a very serious and reoccurring thing. It's a tactic. And you just explained it better than anyone I've ever heard. Can you just do that again if you can recall it from memory?
Yeah, I mean, so basically you give no information whatsoever on something that's obvious that there should be information. Like you outlined, like there's potentially footage of Crooks at the shooting range. Again, Police 101, go get the tapes. Let's figure it out. If you don't want to address that question, then you go silent on it and you say, you can't ask that question, which then creates people who come out of kind of nowhere and they start drawing their own conclusions.
Right.
Knowing the way the internet works, I mean, half of them, or if not more, are probably going to be so far off in left field and made by legitimate kooks or bots that then you can just be like, oh, these people asking these questions about that tape at the video range.
It's space
They're
aliens.
All crazy conspiracy theorists. They say it's a UAP or whatever. And so then you've just, diverted all attention away from the thing that you're trying to conceal, and now everyone's focused on the crazies.
Man.
And then the second someone asks,
now, he's 100% right. Like, that is 100% correct. You don't even have to deny or lie if you just don't say anything at all, right? If you just literally don't even acknowledge it. I always think about the episode of South Park when Stan and Kyle are talking, something happens, and I believe, I don't even remember who it was, but I'm pretty sure it's Kyle feels guilty about something. And Stan just stands there and stares at him and doesn't say anything at all and elicits this confession out of Kyle just by standing there not saying anything. The power of staying silent when it comes to certain issues like this have incredible power on the outcome of how we obtain this information, right? Anyway, very interesting to hear him talk about that. I still would love to know more about the Thomas Crooks situation. I haven't even heard anything about his fucking trial. I don't even know what's happening with that. I haven't heard anything. Maybe we'll do a whole day dive in on all of the attempted assassination or the assassination attempts on Trump, and find out where everybody is. Maybe we'll do a little recap on Luigi too. St. Luigi. Bless you. Okay. Another thing, we got two more things to talk about, really. New terrorism standards in the United States. And the last thing I'm going to cover for today is the poly market scandal and prediction markets. Okay, some of these stories are wild, dude. So this has to do with the convictions in the Prairie Lands case. So back last year, 8 people, I believe, or maybe it was more. I think it was 8 people were arrested for terrorism charges in the United States. Now, did they commit some acts of violence? For sure. Did they end up getting arrested and sentenced? They did. But a few of the things that got them sentenced should scare everyone, and they are worthy of looking into. So if you've ever worn black to a protest, used signal, or carried a first aid kit, a federal jury just decided that all of that can be as evidence of terrorism. A quick thread on the Prairie Lands convictions from last week and what they mean for the right to protest in the United States. First, to be clear, this prosecution was a test from the Trump administration to see if they could convict protesters of terrorism for showing up to a demonstration, and they succeeded. The terrorist organization in question, Antifa, which literally just means being against fascism and is not an organization of any kind. The government convicted people of materially supporting a vibe, an ideology, okay? When you say that you are a neo-Nazi, okay, there are neo-Nazi groups. There are ways to tie people to active groups. There is no Antifa, okay? That's like saying, that capitalism is a terrorist ideology. It is, but who's the head of capitalism? Everyone participates in it. If you support capitalism, you participate in it. If you support being against fascism, you're Antifa. Right? There's no group or organization that you can join. Okay? It doesn't exist. On July 4th last year, about a dozen people held a noise demonstration outside the Prairie Land ICE facility. Police showed up and escalated the situation, and lots of shots were fired. One cop was shot and released from the hospital after a day. One person was charged with attempted murder for the shot officer, but 18 other people got swept up in the case. Oh, so it was 18. My bad. 18. Some who weren't even there, charged with things like deleting a group chat or helping someone find a ride or moving a box of pamphlets. That's right, zines. Do you guys remember zines from high school from the 90s? That shit apparently now is terrorism. The trial was a bit of a farce. First attempt was declared a mistrial because the defense attorney wore a shirt with MLK Jr. under her blazer. The Trump-appointed judge fined the defense for filing routine discovery motions. He also kept a very tightly closed courtroom. The jury convicted 7 people of materially supporting terrorism, aka Antifa, by being in attendance at a demonstration to show solidarity and support to the people caged in the ICE facility. The Prairie Land convictions mean if your ideology puts you in opposition to the state, there's now a framework for making said opposition a federal crime. Quotidian protest stuff is evidence of terrorism. Is someone around you does something the government decides is violent. Okay, so if you go to a protest and you shoot 2 unarmed protesters and one of them dies and you get arrested for that and you go on trial, well, that's okay if you're Kyle Rittenhouse, right? Because he was protecting Capitol. But if you go to a demonstration with a gun in a right to carry state and shoot at cops that are shooting at you when you have not fired a shot, that is terrorism. Helping people get out of that situation, that is terrorism. Wearing black, that is terrorism. Having a first aid kit, that is terrorism. That is what precedent was just set with this trial. Okay? All right, last 2 things real quick. If you don't follow, how do I make this? How do I change this? Oh, Instagram. You're being annoying, aren't you? Okay. You should follow Allie McForever. She does some incredible story journalism. I don't think she is like an actual journalist. I don't know if she has any credentials as a journalist. But a lot of the stuff that she talks about is basically just backed up by open source information, things that you can find publicly available. Nothing that she goes over are any types of like conspiracies or anything like that. Everything is backed up by the news and whatnot. I don't know why the sound won't come out. Come out, sound. Oh, there we go.
Is sitting on $151,000 in positions betting that Netanyahu will be out by the 31st of March. If they're correct.
How do I restart the freaking video, bro? Oh my god, this is annoying. Okay, well, I guess Instagram is not good to use for this. Go to post? I thought I am on the post. Alright, maybe let's try it this way.
Someone with the username
this is about Polymarket
is sitting on $151,000 in positions betting that Netanyahu will be out by the 31st of March. If they're correct, the position pays $3.8 million. People are placing bets on whether he's dead, and currently it's 1 in 4 odds that he is dead. That's an extraordinary number for a sitting head of government in an active war. Blockchain analysis revealed that suspected insiders have already won, made, earned, bet, what's the right word here? $1 million, just on the precise timings of strikes hitting Iran. Crazy war propaganda is being used to coordinate market manipulation. This is on Israel's Reddit. This engagement farming and AI videos are pumping this rumor that is moving the Polymarket odds. They profit from the spike and then move. They showed you an AI man with a coffee cup and you spent how long counting his fingers? The most credible published source of information that we have is Elon Musk's Grok calling it a deepfake. But yet Western outlets have proceeded to quoting these AI videos as source material without resolving the contradiction. They are not publishing the real news and information update from this war. Let me read that for you quickly. This morning, Iran fired what the IRGC called Wave 61 of Operation True Promise 4. They hit 100 targets around Tel Aviv this morning, the 18th of March, and they did that without interference, meaning the dome was broke. Wave 61. They are not stopping. What America and Israel are failing to understand is that Iran does not have or need one direct, neat chain of command that you can decapitate. As Israel keeps focusing on hunting individual Iranian leaders, Iran is waiting them out, and it has time and resource to do so. Killing the supreme leader of a decentralized network is a waste of time and money, and Tomahawk missiles. Iran is literally built and trained to wait this out. And Trump has midterms in November, and Bibi has not been seen since the 10th of March in person. Iranian missiles are now getting through and hitting suburban centres in Tel Aviv because the Israeli defence system is depleting. Trump sat yesterday in the Oval Office with a bust of Winston Churchill trying to make the Irish Taoiseach, the Taoiseach of a small neutral country, intimidated. Israel swinging at the Iranian leadership like Iran has a 20th century dictator. Really reading from the book that Churchill wrote about himself, huh? Their playbook hasn't changed. They haven't upgraded the software. What this looks like to me is the spasming tail end of a colonial project who has misread its opponent's ability to endure it. I don't know if he's dead or not. I know that's AI hands. But what if he is dead? Where's this going to go? What's the plan? What happens in a month? A year? Let's say he's not alive. Who the fuck is running the war machine in his absence? Well, turns out that's a pretty critical question, because we have Smotrich, religious Zionist far right, who has been calling for Palestinian starvation as a war tool. This guy, Etmar Ben-Gvir, he might also just be dead anyway, so we'll skip him. Most importantly, Ron Dermer, the Strategic Affairs Minister. These people are even more extreme. They want this war to continue and expand. They have now no democratic check on them because Netanyahu, who was a nominal check, is now no longer in the room. So even if Trump is trying to find an exit, these Israeli partners, no. Russia is giving Iran advanced drone tactics and sharing locations of US military assets. China is supplying precursors for solid fuel for Iranian ballistic missiles. Iran is mining the Strait of Hormuz. The global economy needs to prepare itself for quite a sustained shutdown, as the IRGC are running a country with no single load-bearing leader. And the British Empire's playbook that the Americans and the Israelis have inherited and not updated never accounted for decentralized force. It's not in your process handbook. And Donald Trump doesn't seem to have a bare basic grasp of the kind of enemy that he now faces. What's interesting to me is how the timing overlaps with 2003. Bush launched Iraq in March 2003, and by November midterms, with no exit, mounting casualties and no WMDs, Democrats took the House and the Senate, and Rumsfeld resigned the next day. That's how this is going to end. Vietnam, exactly the same. Lyndon B. Johnson, by the midterms, he had lost the House. He did not run for re-election. What might look clean in month 1 looks very different by month 8, especially when the body bags are starting to come home and price fuel is higher than ever. And the economy will be at a standstill because they will not open the strait. And if Netanyahu really is dead, that moment is coming quicker and it's going to collapse more publicly than ever. And we're all here to watch and see what happens next.
So, you have all those instances of, what she was talking about, but the big thing that I wanted to focus on was the fact that they are betting on Netanyahu's death. They're trying to predict when this will happen so that they can win money off the poly market. The other famous one is Kalshi, right? This is totally insane. A war correspondent just received death threats from the online gamblers who wanted him to change his reporting on an Iranian missile strike so that they could collect a payout. One bettor had $900,000 riding on the outcome. He told the journalist he knew where he had lived and who his family members were. This is what prediction markets on life and death actually look like in practice. This is exactly why. Anyway, so yeah, Mike Levin, he's I believe in Senate or in the House for California. Yeah. So yeah, it just talks about the act that he wants, the Death Bets Act. Now you can't use Polymarket in the United States; it's already banned. I don't know if Kalshi is banned yet, but I think it is. Or there are serious restrictions on it. A lot of these are taking place outside of the United States. These big bets, and this one in particular was from an Israeli citizen. So the Israelis were betting on a missile strike on a certain day, and when it was declared that it was actually just shrapnel or like a missile that was intercepted, because that doesn't count. The missile has to hit because it was just shrapnel and it wasn't a live exploding ordnance. It didn't count, so they didn't win their money. So they threatened this reporter to change his story, otherwise they were going to kill him. Pretty much, they said they're going to make his life a living hell. They're going to go after his family. They're going to go after everybody that he knows, and all this stuff. And yeah. Anyway, he decided to publish everything and put it out on the internet for people to read. And ended up getting kind of a outcome in his benefit, at least. The bet was taken down, and the information was passed along to the authorities. But nothing's going to happen from that. I guarantee it. Almost 100%. Nothing's going to happen. Okay. That's it. That's all I got for today. 2 hours, almost 3 hours stream today. A lot of shit going on. A lot of stuff happened this week. It was a really insane week, especially from Tuesday to today. Was just nonstop news, nonstop headlines, big things happening. I will be back again tonight at 8 p.m. to play some games for some fun, have some fun times. And then I'll probably be back, like I said, on Sunday to do some more games, and then Tuesday we'll be back in the afternoon for another round of news, stuff like that. One thing is I'll have some bookmarks, have some stuff that I do want to go over more in depth. Some things happening with the AI market, ICE officers are taking DNA samples from protesters they've arrested. And another big thing, I'm waiting for an article. I need to read more on this. The conservative Cato Institute is accusing the Trump admin of carrying out the largest fraud in history of the immigration system, totaling $1 billion. The scheme allegedly involves taking processing fees from immigrants and never providing promised services. I don't know what that's about. I still have to read more about that before I talk about it. And then the other major thing that I do want to get to, and I need to find out more, is actually a story from earlier this week, and I still haven't seen much on it. I've seen a few people share what happened. This French journalist, Marine Vlahovic, was found dead in her home in Marseille after working on a documentary covering Israel's genocidal war against the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. You tell me that's a coincidence, I'm going to tell you that I got a bridge for sale in South Lebanon. So we will get into all of this stuff on Tuesday, and hopefully I'll see y'all back here tonight to play a spooky game. Thank you to everyone who has come in and watched today. Numbers have been pretty good. If you're still here and you're not following, please think about throwing me a follow. But good news, we did get to 26 followers, so I am now eligible for affiliate. You can subscribe to the channel. That does help us turn this into something that could be viable for me long term. I also want to keep making YouTube videos, but I still want to do this as much as possible. And I'm going to keep trying to do it at least twice a week. Hopefully we can move up to more times a week, and I can come on here and chit chat with you about news a lot, because there's a lot going on, and I feel like this year is only going to get crazier as we get closer to the midterms. So thank you again. You were the 25th. You were the one that put me over. I got to 26. That is Wanted Nami. I don't know who that is. I don't know their username, but thank you again to everyone who followed today. And I hope to see you back here tonight for some fun. So thanks again, and see you in a little bit.